It's a strange reality, isn't it? We're swimming in more information than ever before.
Totally.
Got a question about your business? Chances are there's a report, a study, a whole database out there.
Right.
Yet when you actually sit down and try to make sense of it all for yourself, well, those clear answers can feel frustratingly out of reach.
Uh-huh.
Does that resonate with what you're experiencing, with your own data?
I bet it does for many listeners.
Because that's precisely what we're digging into today.
It's a true paradox, isn't it? The intuitive thought is, well, more data equals more clarity.
Yeah, seems logical.
But what we often find, especially in market research, is that the sheer volume, it can actually obscure the very insights we're seeking.
So you're surrounded by numbers, but the actual understanding feels elusive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Elusive is a good word for it.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the core of this deep dive. An article published January this year, 2025,
Okay.
titled Too Much Data, Too Little Insight, The Paradox of Market Research. It's penned by Nisha Dior. She's a research analyst, specializes in the food and beverage industry.
Ah, so she's really in the thick of it.
Right. Someone who's been in the trenches, grappling with this exact issue, how to extract meaningful signals from all the noise.
Yeah.
Her direct experience, especially in a dynamic sector like food and bev, really lends a practical edge to her perspective, you know?
Exactly. Nisha Dior's work, analyzing data, generating actionable insights in such a fast-paced industry, it means she's seen firsthand just how easy it is to get overwhelmed.
And how critical it is to cut through that clutter.
Crucial to find what truly matters.
So our mission for you today is to really unpack this paradox.
Get to the bottom of it.
We want to get a solid grasp on why having so much market research data can actually hinder businesses.
Right, the pitfalls.
And more importantly, what concrete real-world steps you can take to unearth those valuable insights, the ones buried in that mountain of information.
Practical strategies, that's key.
Okay, so let's start by looking at why this abundance of data becomes such a significant hurdle for businesses like yours.
Well, the first obstacle, as Nisha Dior highlights, is simply the sheer volume. It's huge.
Just too much stuff coming in.
Yeah. Companies today are pulling in data from, well, an unprecedented number of sources.
Pay for it.
Everything from how people interact with their websites, direct sales figures, what's being said on social media, different kinds of customer feedback. Think about that retail company example in the article.
Okay.
They're trying to track store foot traffic, online purchases, conversations across numerous social channels, plus all sorts of demographic data.
Wow. It's like trying to focus on one voice in a packed stadium, isn't it?
That's a great analogy. All that background noise just makes it impossible to lock in on what's truly important.
What's relevant to your specific questions?
Precisely. And without a really clear strategy,
Yeah.
guiding what you're hoping to learn,
Yeah.
you can easily find yourself collecting everything under the sun, but actually understanding very little.
Which leads
directly to what Nisha Dior calls analysis paralysis.
Oh, I know that feeling. It's like staring at a giant spreadsheet and feeling so overwhelmed you don't even know where to begin, let alone figure out what to do.
Yeah.
You just freeze.
Okay, exactly.
You might have felt that yourself, maybe with loads of customer feedback, wondering where to start, right?
Absolutely. Decision makers can get so bogged down just trying to process this massive influx that they struggle to make timely or even well-informed decisions.
Right.
The article really emphasizes that difficulty of prioritizing what truly matters.
Is that spike in social media mentions more important than the slow decline in foot traffic at one store?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Weighing those different points, understanding their relative importance, it becomes incredibly challenging.
And this delay, this paralysis, it means missed opportunities, wasted resources.
Directly. You might misallocate resources on things that aren't actually impactful.
And I can imagine having all this potentially conflicting data, that must cause some serious disagreements within a company.
Oh, absolutely. Conflicting interpretations are a very real risk here.
Different teams see different things.
Right. If one team is focused on, say, a surge in online engagement, while another is worried about a drop in physical store sales, it can be incredibly tough to reach a unified consensus on the best path forward.
Which signals are the most reliable? Which trends matter most?
Exactly. Too much data, especially without a good analytical framework, just amplifies these disagreements, makes it harder to get everyone on the same page.
And the article also mentions something fundamental, sometimes lost in all the big data talk.
What's that?
The actual quality of the data itself.
Ah, yes. Critical point, often overlooked.
It's not just about quantity, it's whether the info is accurate, complete, relevant.
That's it. As the volume grows, so does the potential for, well, incomplete, outdated, or even flat out inaccurate information.
So if the underlying data is flawed,
Then any insights you derive, no matter how fancy your analysis, are going to be fundamentally flawed too.
garbage in, garbage out.
The old saying holds true. And Nisha Dior specifically cautions against relying too heavily on free or very low-cost data sources.
Why is that?
They might not be as up-to-date or as comprehensive as your business really needs to make truly informed decisions.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty clear picture of the challenges with data overload. Significant hurdles.
Definitely.
Now, let's get to the crucial part. How can businesses like yours actually navigate this ocean of information? How do you start extracting those meaningful, actionable insights?
Right, the solutions. The article emphasizes a fundamental shift, a shift in mindset.
Okay.
It's about consciously moving away from just collecting everything available.
The hoover it all up approach.
Exactly. And instead, adopting a much more strategic, intentional approach to getting data.
And that starts where?
It all begins with a deep understanding of your core business goals. What are you actually trying to achieve?
Makes perfect sense. If you don't know the question, you won't recognize the answer, right?
Precisely. Wandering without a map, as you said. You'll end up with lots of interesting but maybe unhelpful facts.
So define the goal first.
Exactly. Nisha Dior gives a really clear example. A company focused on boosting customer satisfaction will strategically prioritize collecting data on customer feedback, online reviews, service interactions. Their efforts are deliberately aligned with that specific goal.
Makes sense.
Conversely, a company aiming for sales growth will probably prioritize transactional data, customer purchase behaviors.
So you narrow the scope based on objectives.
Yes, and that helps you avoid being overwhelmed by a flood of irrelevant information.
Okay, so step one, be strategic. Be focused about what data you collect. Got it. Once you have that more targeted set, what's next? How do you sift through it?
That's where intelligent data filtering techniques become essential.
Okay.
The article highlights the growing importance of advanced analytics tools, machine learning algorithms.
Using tech to help out.
Right. These technologies can automatically analyze vast, complex data sets. They can spot hidden patterns, subtle trends, things a human analyst might easily miss working manually.
So it's like having a superpowered data detective.
Yeah, something like that. Spotting connections you wouldn't see with the naked eye.
What can they actually do?
Well, they can uncover intricate correlations between seemingly unrelated variables, detect emerging trends early on, and even help predict potential future customer behaviors based on past patterns.
So it frees up the humans.
Exactly. By automating some of the heavy lifting and analysis, companies free up their analysts or strategists to focus on the critical part, interpreting the results, formulating strategies based on those insights.
Like grouping similar customers.
Yes, Nisha highlights that. Algorithms can group customers with similar buying habits from huge data sets, allowing for much more targeted marketing.
And it sounds like it's not just about having these fancy tools, but also shifting how you prioritize the data itself. Quality over quantity.
Absolutely. The article makes a strong case for that. Prioritize getting and analyzing high-quality, relevant data over just amassing the largest possible pile of information.
Better to have less, but better.
Much better. A smaller, focused data set that directly addresses your key questions and that you know is accurate and reliable. That's far more effective than drowning in a massive ocean of questionable or irrelevant info.
So, for example, instead of surveying every customer, maybe focus on in-depth feedback from your most valuable ones, or those with specific recent experiences.
That's a perfect illustration. By focusing your efforts on a carefully chosen, relevant segment, you often gain much deeper, more immediately actionable insights, better than analyzing broad, maybe unrepresentative samples.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's shift focus slightly to the actual market research processes. How can businesses design those processes from the start to minimize the data deluge risk?
Good question. Nisha Dior emphasizes using targeted data collection methods. Things like well-structured surveys, designed to answer specific questions, carefully moderated focus groups exploring particular topics in depth, and direct observational studies focused on understanding actual behaviors in context.
So the common thread is intention.
Exactly. These methods are intentionally designed to gather specific types of information directly related to your clear business objectives, not just casting a wide net hoping to catch something useful by chance.
So instead of one huge generic survey to everyone,
Right.
design smaller, focused research initiatives targeted precisely at the questions you urgently need answers to.
Precisely. Be highly intentional, purposeful in your gathering. And once you've gathered this more targeted, relevant data,
Then what?
the article strongly highlights the power of data visualization tools.
Oh yeah, turning those overwhelming spreadsheets into something you can actually see and understand.
Exactly. Taking raw numbers and making them visually compelling. Charts, graphs, dashboards.
Easier to grasp trends.
Significantly easier. For decision makers across different teams to quickly grasp trends, spot insights, understand the story the data is telling.
And communicate it to others.
Right. Good visualization improves accessibility, and it can help you quickly spot outliers or unexpected patterns hidden in rows of numbers.
It's like comparing written assembly instructions to detailed diagrams, isn't it?
Perfect analogy. Visuals give that immediate understanding.
Okay.
And finally, on optimizing processes, the article underscores the value of collaborating with experienced market research professionals.
That makes a lot of sense. Bringing in the experts.
These are the people with the specialized knowledge, designing effective methods, applying the right analytical techniques.
And
Crucially, translating all that technical analysis into clear, actionable business insights that non-technical folks can understand and actually use.
their expertise can help avoid those common pitfalls.
Invaluable for that. Ensuring your research investment actually yields meaningful results that drive the business forward.
Strategically.
Effectively.
Now, we've talked a lot about handling data overload effectively. But the article also warns about the dangers of just relying on big data without proper analysis.
This is a really critical caution.
Why is that dangerous?
Well, while massive data sets can offer that broad bird's eye view of certain trends,
Yeah.
they can also inadvertently hide crucial details, nuances that are vital for truly understanding why consumers behave a certain way, or the subtle market shifts.
So you might see a general trend, but miss the reasons behind it in specific groups.
Precisely. And without the right analytical tools and sound methods, there's a significant risk, often underestimated, of drawing inaccurate conclusions, maybe based on correlations that don't actually represent a real causal link.
Right. Correlation isn't causation.
Exactly. Nisha the Or gives a good example.
Mm.
You might see a correlation between higher sales and more social media mentions for your brand.
Okay.
But without digging deeper, you can't just conclude that social media caused the sales boost.
Could be other things.
A multitude of other factors. A recent marketing campaign, a seasonal trend, competitor actions, who knows?
So you need to look deeper than just the surface correlation.
Absolutely. And remember, big data, while it seems objective, often has inherent biases.
Biases.
Reflecting how the data was collected or the populations it represents. If these aren't identified and accounted for during analysis, they can significantly skew your insights and potentially lead to seriously misguided business decisions.
Especially for big decisions.
Particularly high-stakes choices, pricing, marketing strategies, new product launches. The potential for costly mistakes from uncritically relying on big data is very real.
So it's clearly not enough just to have tons of data.
Not at all.
You need the skills, the rigor, to properly interrogate it, understand its true meaning.
Yes. Which leads us back to the ultimate goal, focusing on generating truly actionable insights.
Information you can actually use to make better decisions, drive positive outcomes. How do businesses ensure that happens?
It all comes back to that foundation we discussed earlier.
The goals.
Establishing crystal clear business goals, defining your key performance indicators, KPIs, the metrics for success before you even start collecting data.
Align everything from the start.
Exactly. By aligning data gathering with predefined objectives and KPIs, you massively increase the odds you'll collect the right info to answer your most pressing questions or solve your biggest challenges.
It's like working backward from the answer you need.
Precisely. Start with the desired outcome, then figure out what information gets you there.
And once you have that strategic data,
Then, the article strongly advocates investing in analytical tools and techniques that provide forward-looking insights.
looking ahead.
Yeah. Predictive analytics, trend analysis, sophisticated customer segmentation tools. These advanced capabilities help you understand not just what has happened, but also anticipate future trends, future customer behaviors.
So using data not just for a rear view mirror, but also like headlights.
Great way to put it. Gaining an informed perspective on where you're likely heading and how best to navigate the future. And the core message, what Nishidori keeps emphasizing, is that critical need to prioritize data quality and relevance over the allure of sheer volume.
Quality over quantity.
Always. Stick to that principle, and you significantly increase your chances of deriving truly valuable insights. Insights that directly inform strategy, lead to better decisions aligned with your actual goals.
And to really hammer home how common this struggle is, the article shares a pretty stark, fast fact.
Oh, yeah.
A 2023 study revealed that a staggering 70% of businesses report struggling to actually make sense of the data they collect.
Wow. 70%. That really highlights how widespread this issue is.
Yeah, it truly does. Clearly not just a theoretical problem.
It's a very real, significant struggle for the vast majority of companies out there today.
So to bring it all together for you, our listener,
Yeah.
the key takeaways from this deep dive into Nishidori's insightful article are pretty clear.
Let's recap.
Approach data collection strategically, with focus. Always prioritize quality and relevance over sheer volume. Actively leverage the power of sophisticated analytical tools and techniques.
Right.
And stay keenly aware of the pitfalls. Don't just blindly rely on big data without thorough, thoughtful analysis.
Ultimately, it's about making that crucial shift in perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
Moving away from just data accumulation towards a strategic, results-oriented focus on true insight generation.
Yeah. What, for you, stands out as maybe the single most critical piece of this whole puzzle?
That's tough, but I think maybe it loops back to the quality point. Ensuring the data you do focus on is actually reliable and relevant. Garbage in, garbage out is hard to overcome. What about you?
For me, I think it really comes back to that initial step you mentioned. Clearly defining the business goals, the specific questions you're trying to answer.
The foundation.
Yeah. If you don't have that clear purpose, that direction, then all the data, all the tools in the world,
Yeah.
they won't magically give you the actionable answers you need.
That's a profoundly important point to end on. Direction first.
Exactly.
And on that note, here's a final thought for you, the listener, to consider as you reflect on this.
Okay.
In this world awash in data, countless sources, what are the one or two truly key questions that, if you could answer them with genuinely insightful, reliable information, what questions would have the potential to fundamentally shift your understanding or your strategic approach in your specific area, your business?
Good challenge.
Yeah, take some time. Think about how you can apply these principles, strategic collection, rigorous quality analysis to the information sources you encounter.
To uncover those truly game-changing insights.
The ones that can make a real difference.